Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Today I'm doing a Q&A and it's off the back of a question that a friend of mine called Chirag, who's a great supporter of the channel and helps with the Watch Addiction Club Facebook group. I'll leave a link below, and it's a very problematic question and I don't want you guys to slaughter me in the comments, but he asked me, which watch brands do I think give the worst value to people like ourselves, the watch collector, the watch enthusiast, especially newbies that are going into the hobby. This is where you tend to make a lot of mistakes. And we were talking about, let's say, you know, you bought a watch and you needed an emergency fund and you needed to generate it from somewhere. You spent anything from £1,000 to £5,000 on a watch. You know, would you be able to sell that watch in case of an emergency and generate the sort of money that you paid for the watch? And the answer to that question is absolutely no. You know, unfortunately, guys, when buying a watch, what I advise to people is buy what you can afford to lose. Yeah? So if you're buying a watch, for example, for 10, 15 grand, thinking you're going to make money, but you really can't afford to pay your mortgage at the end of the month, you can't afford to put food on your table, man, come on. You know, it's a major risk. I mean, there's so many better investment opportunities than in investing in a watch. The watch market is so up and down. Even, you know, the so-called watch gurus, and I'm not a watch guru whatsoever, it's very hard to predict. You know, obviously there are obvious, you know, indications in terms of certain watches that, you know, have a very high chance of going up in value. But a lot of the time it depends what country you live in, how accessible your watch is to that market, for example. So you have to do your research. And Chirag, I told you this on the phone, it's all about research. Research is king. I cannot stress that anymore. We've all been there. I put my hands up. I do a quick wristwatch check. I am wearing my Omega Seamaster Electric Blue today. I put my hands up. I've made these mistakes myself, you know. And Chirag's been pushing me to do this video. I've been holding off because I don't want to dig out any watch brands, because even the watch brands I'm going to mention now, they have a good lineup of watches, but they've also got a bad lineup of watches that really don't have don't have very good resale value, okay? And the key to it is buying an iconic watch. But probably the biggest culprit, in my opinion, because they've got very good advertising and they market themselves in such a way that they attract maybe the newbies to the hobby, and they go out and buy retail, for example, and it is Tag Heuer. You know, I love the brand. It's got some designs and models that I really like. However, buying a new Tag Heuer it's a little bit suicidal, to be honest with you. Especially with some of their models, they really are overpriced. But, you know, it pains me to say this because I like the brand and I really do like some of their designs and models. I think they're very attractive watches. You're just losing too much money, guys. You know, if you were to go and buy a used Tag Heuer, and look, I don't want to mention any names, but a friend of mine bought a Tag watch. He bought retail for it. He paid over £3,000. 1 week went by, he was loving the watch. It was the best thing. It was, you know, he was arguing with me that it was better than my Rolex, it was better than my Omega, it was better than everything, yeah? As he learned a little bit more about the watch, he went and did his research after the watch. He basically listened to what the guy said in the boutique, did a great sales job on him. You see the marketing and all the famous celebrities wearing the watch. He was pulled in by the boutique experience. But once he realised, you know, and the sort of like he was basically publishing his watch online and stuff, and he was getting mixed reviews and all the rest of it, his opinion of the watch changed, and he turned around and said to me, Dale, can you sell this watch for me? Because I've had it on eBay for a while and I've had no buyers, you know. And I was like, dude, you know, the price, because it's the price that you've got it at, you're not going to get nowhere near retail price for a used watch. You know what I mean? Especially a Tag Heuer. And You know, he was adamant that, you know, he wouldn't give it up. Yet, you know, his situation now with the watch is a bit like being married to a woman that you can't divorce. You're stuck with her for life, you know. And, you know, it can be very painful. Now, buying watches, you know, it's a little bit like going on the high street. You see an attractive woman, she takes your eye, a bit of eye candy, and you want to basically approach her, and it's that adrenaline and that rush, the chase, you know. And deep down, you know you shouldn't be doing it because you might be married or you've got a girlfriend or whatever, but she's taking your eye, and at that moment in time, your brain, your heart says yes, and you go for it. For example, you know that she's probably a gold digger, she's materialistic, she really isn't the sort of girl that you want to bring home to your mum, but you go ahead and do it, and in the end, what happens? The result, the outcome, it's a disaster. She probably gets you into trouble. You probably spent thousands of pounds trying to impress her. You've lied through your teeth to try and get into her knickers. And if you did, that's great. And then once you've done it, you realise, what was all the fuss about, you know? And a lot of the time, you know, with certain, you know, the high street brands, and I just want to dig out and tag Heuer or anything like that. You know, Longines do it as well. Rado, you know, the list goes on. Breitling, you know. Don't get me wrong, they've all got good watches within their collection, but there are a certain selection of watches that really, you know, you have to love the watch. Don't expect to make money on the watch because you're just going to be disappointed. You know, it's like your expectations are so high. So what I would say to anyone getting into the hobby, do as much research as you can, okay? Don't just go and buy a watch off the back of, oh, you like the look of it or whatever. Make sure it's right for you. If it's a watch that you're absolutely fascinated and it's going to be like your soulmate and you want to propose and you can see yourself being married to that watch for the rest of your life, then go for it, guys. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks about that particular watch. But, you know, it comes to a point where if you do start collecting watches, your collection grows. You start off with 3 or 4 watches. Suddenly, before you know it, you've got 20, 30 watches. And then you realise, like, well, there's no point having watches sitting there in my watch box if I don't wear them. You then go to sell them. And especially if you bought it retail, the only guys that benefit are the guys that are negotiating and buying used watches. You've taken the hit. You've lost a hell of a lot of money. It's absolutely fine if you're a multi-millionaire. Someone like Mayweather, for example, he's busting these, you know, Hublots, £250,000 watches. And I think that he'll struggle to sell them at that price if he ever, you know, was to sell them. But he doesn't need to. He's got money to burn. Unless you've got money to burn and throw away, it doesn't matter. You know, if you've got a, you know, if you've got a silver spoon feeding you, or you've got oil and gas coming out of your ground, there's no problem. You know what I mean? But for the normal guys like me and you, life can be very difficult at times. And I've made an error. I probably lost thousands of pounds in watches. You know, I don't want to list too many of them, you know, but I mentioned a few. And don't get me wrong, I love Tag Heuer. I love Longines. Rado, I've got mixed feelings. I only like this sort of Rado Coupe, men's classic, the traditional type watches. I'm not that fond of the rest of the brand, but, you know, they are what they are. They're not bad. But there are other watches in their collection that aren't great, to be honest with you. And if you needed to create emergency funds, it's not going to happen. It's gone. Forget it. You know, the only, look, is the obvious choice is Rolex, you know, in the real world. Rolex, you know, even Rolex, like I said, there are a line of watches that aren't so easily to shift. But Rolex, you know, in the real world, you know, is a watch that, even if you bought it brand new, don't get me wrong, look, if you buy it brand new, the Rolex, as soon as you walk out of that showroom, you would have lost money on the watch, okay? However, with a certain period of time, there's a very high percentage, a very high probability that you would be able to get your money back. That's what I would say about Rolex. But if you do your research, you know, you follow some really good guys in the watch community, you know, Archie Luxury, he does repeat himself millions of times And big shout out to Archie Luxury. He does know his stuff. And I've learned a lot from the guy. You know, there's another guy called Federico Talks Watches. Very experienced guy from the community. You know, he's got real commercial watch experience. You know, the guy knows his stuff. Very good guy. And, you know, you can learn a lot from these guys. I've learned a lot from being on the forums, asking questions, what to buy, what not to buy, what to look for. I've done the mistakes. I've bought vintage with dials that have been redone, and the guys that you speak to who are selling these watches are like, no, it's original. You get the watch, someone tells you that shouldn't be there, or it's a Frankenstein watch or whatever. You know what I mean? So you've got to be careful. The key to it is don't rush into anything. I know it's difficult because, like I said, it's like seeing that attractive woman. It depends. If you're a nervous guy or a confident guy, it depends on your approach. You may freeze, you may fall apart, or you might just go ahead. You might be just an activist and not an analyst. But I think when you're buying watches, don't be an activist, be an analyst, because give yourself a little bit more time to do that research to make sure you don't pull the trigger on something that's going to be totally wrong for you. However, for you guys that have got all the paper in the world, it don't matter what you buy. You don't care, you know, end of the day, you're not buying it to sell it. You're buying it because it made you happy at that period of time in your life. So guys, look, it's been a bit of a politician's type answer to this question. But yet again, I don't want to dig out these brands. It's like that with all the brands. You know, I'll be honest with you. Every single watch manufacturer, right from Seiko, right up to Patek Philippe, there are certain watches that sell and certain watches that don't sell easily. So the key to it is buy what you can afford, okay? Don't overdo it. Buy what you can afford. Buy what you can afford to lose. So if you can't afford to lose 5 grand, don't buy that watch. That's all I'm saying to you guys. Do not buy it. Do not touch it. You know, if you can afford to lose a couple of £1,000 on a watch, buy it. Because there's a possibility that you might lose that money, okay? So I hope that covers part of that question, Chirag. It's the best I could do on it. As you guys know, I work in the recruitment industry, and we work with quite a few brands that sell these specific watch brands, you know, and you know, I love them. I think they're great, you know, but it's like everything in life. Like, you know, you buy a Mercedes S-Class, and then it's got an A-Class Merc that it's pretty crap, you know what I mean, end of the day. So it's like that with everything. It's not specific to any brand or anything like that. So I'm not really digging out anybody, okay? Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Take care. Have a good weekend.